Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm Rosemary Armeo, your host, and this is Beyond the Brink and Fighting Back. I had a most interesting weekend I want to tell you about. I went to church. Yes, godless me, but I actually liked it because this was no ordinary church that I went to. This was a service of the Upper Room Inclusive Catholic Community. It's run out of this nondescript industrial building. You would never mistake it for a cathedral out on New Carner Road in Colony. And let me tell you, this is not the Catholic Church that I was raised in and left. This was more like the church of the early Christians in Roman times, at the beginning of the church. No vestments, no goal, and most of all, no ban on women being involved in the ceremony. This place is run by a bunch of, excuse my language, badass feminist, humanist women. And one of them is here with me tonight. I want you to meet, please, Denise Hackert-Stoner. Now, I have known Denise for years. She is an amazing nature photographer, works along with her husband, Scott. She's a writer. She's a Substack author. And when I found out she was also a priest, I wanted to know a lot more about that. She's been showing me the way. I still have a million questions. I'm going to pepper you with them tonight. Denise, let's start off with you telling us how you came to be a priest and why you wanted a role that I'm sure you, like me, learned from an early age was supposed to be off limits for any little girl or woman to want. Did you start out wanting to be a nun?
First of all, thank you, Rosemary, for having me tonight, and it's a pleasure to speak with you. No, I never had any desire to be a nun. I I didn't. I didn't really start out looking to be a priest. I I was looking for an alternative to the church that I had loved my whole life, but felt that it had moved away from me. And I was looking for something new, something different. I explored other religions, um, but really always came back to my love of sacrament,
Mm-hmm.
um, which nobody does as well as the Catholic Church. So I I learned about a church that was in in Albany that had women priests, and I thought, well, this is different. so so I sought them out and visited them one time and never turned back. I was I completely found my home that
Mm-hmm.
day at the Upper Room community, and never really thought about becoming a priest until another member of the community, another priest, asked me if I ever felt called to the priesthood. And my first answer was, no, not really. I mean, I really never, you wouldn't really, at least me, I'm kind of a shy person who kind of does things the right way that I've always thought was right. Never really dreamed of being a priest because it wasn't allowed.
Right.
So, but when she asked me that, and when I said no, it really made me think. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that most of my life, I often was the priest for my family in many
Mm-hmm.
ways,
Mm-hmm.
um, and realized that yeah, I am called to the priesthood, but never really said anything else because I'd already said no until someone asked me again a second time, and that opened the door for me, and that.
The reason I want to make this clear to my listeners that I thought this was a perfect podcast is that we talk here about how horrible things are in the world, negative. People are starving, there's wars, there's political division, and many people are looking for something else, something bigger than them, a way to get away from all of that. And many of you have found that. I know you have in the upper room.
Yeah, we're we're very committed to it. We're very lucky that we have found one another, and it's a beautiful community.
Yeah.
I don't feel like we're so much getting away from the problems of the world. We're very much aware of the problems of the world, and in our own way, we're doing what we can in our little corner of the world to alleviate some of the pain.
I can see that in the ceremony that I went to, the service that I went to. There was a whole lot more talk of what was going on in the world. And I remember from any Catholic service I've ever been to, any mass. And there was discussion of the cruelty of depriving people of SNAP and the cruelty and exclusion of immigrants. This came up as part of the discussion right in the middle of the service. So that's true. But the Catholic Church doesn't really approve of this. You're excommunicated from the church proper right now.
We are in violation of Canon Law 1024, which states that only baptized males are eligible for ordination. But we consider that to be an unjust law,
Mhm.
unjust and discriminatory. And we have chosen in a prophetic manner to illustrate that to the rest of the church by our actions. Um, and so here we are. We're ready to serve, and we are indeed serving.
Okay, let's talk a little history here because in the early days of the church, in the days right after Jesus, there were women involved in the church. There was a reading last Sunday. It was basically a list of names of women who figured and worked very hard in the early church, and their names have been scrubbed out of the record. How did this come about? Why did the early church founders, the males, want to get rid of the women involvement?
Rosemary, that's a very hard question for me to answer. I have to admit, I really don't know what their reasoning was. I can only guess. Um, I'm not a church historian, um, but I do know that around the year 300, maybe 312 or something, um, the church as it was at that time was embraced by Rome, by Constantine, who was emperor at the time, and and they accepted that embrace. And with along with the perks of being accepted into the empire came adopting a lot of what the empire was. And I think that Rome was a man's world.
Yes, yeah,
I
there was
think that
not room for women leadership.
yeah, I don't think so. Um, and I think that that wasn't the only change. I think that along with that came a lot of the patriarchy and hierarchy that we still see in the church today.
Not in the upper room service. That's another big difference. There was not a priest standing up there presiding over it all. There's what a facilitator who moved along, but members of the community all spoke. You passed the bowl. Talk about that a little bit. Passing the
Well,
bowl.
yeah, I mean we have presiders. Um, Usually a priest, often with a member of the community, oftentimes working on the liturgies together, and then presiding. The, the week that you came, you saw two presiders, but they were on Zoom.
Right, right.
Um, and there was a presider in the room just to kind of preside at the table, right? At the
Yes.
consecration. Um, but but yeah, so the passing of the bowl, you asked about that. That is the highlight of our liturgy as far as I'm concerned. And that is where, each person in the room has an opportunity, is not required in any way, but has an opportunity to um, talk about their reaction to the readings of the day, their insights. And we have a lot of wisdom in that room. We send out a couple of days before the liturgy, we send out the readings to the whole community, so people have a chance to read them ahead of time and become
I want to
familiar with
explain
them.
to listeners, and I hope this is not condescending, but liturgy is just really a fancy word that means the public ceremony. It's the format of the public meeting. And so, as part of that, you include everyone speaking to react to or to respond to. So there was a lot of discussion, as I recall, about kindness. And this again was related to what's happening in our political world too. So it was both spiritual, religious, if you will, and very kind of a political discussion too. I was
Yeah.
quite taken with that. I tried not to say anything. I didn't want to.
You were very welcome to say
I
it.
could have done it. Let's explain a few more things. Upper room, that's an unusual name, but it comes from, again, religious history. Can you explain that? Why are you the upper room inclusive Catholic community?
The name came well before I was involved in the community, but I have heard the history, so I can relate it to you. Um, so the community started in the living room of the first woman priest in the capital region, Mary Teresa Streck,
From
um,
Minneapolis. Yes,
who was my mentor and is a beloved friend. Um, anyway, eventually they kind of outgrew her living room and ended up in several locations before ending up in the space that you came to the other
right.
day, yesterday. Um, but somewhere along the line, as they grew, they decided that they should really have a name. And one of the people suggested upper room, and the name stuck. The upper room is kind of a beloved Bible reference. It refers to the room that Jesus had the Last Supper with his friends, and also the room where the disciples gathered after the death of Jesus, um, when they were filled with the Holy Spirit at Pentecost. So it's kind of an important
Yeah, it's really
reference.
kind of a very clever reference if you've seen the Leonardo da Vinci painting that refers to the beautiful paneled and pillared walls of a room where the Last Supper was held.
Yeah.
And where the Last Supper is important too. The Eucharist is given, and I also, as a lapsed Catholic, was moved by that. You use bread instead of that little piece of cardboard that they give in the Catholic Church, and everyone picks it out of a bowl. It's like really breaking bread together rather than a priest holding it. You're not allowed to touch it, and you have to fast before you touch it, and don't dare chew on it. That's a sin. You'll go to hell. None of that. It's much more communal and humanist based. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I think so. We use gluten-free bread so that everyone can partake, and we use non-alcoholic wine so that everyone can partake. So,
Right, right.
yeah.
It's much more to give the feeling, and the reference was made to that, to the early communal church meetings. And you call it a community, not a congregation, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a much more descriptive uh, term of, describing what we are, who we are to each other. We're a community, not a congregation.
And there are no, that I could see, there's no hierarchy. I mean, and if you go to a Catholic, uh, the traditional Catholic, it's the bishop, the archbishop, and then a priest, and then a deacon, and then maybe an altar boy, and then the rest of those people out there that who are told what to do, the sheep. I didn't find that when I went to the ceremony.
We don't really have a hierarchy. We have priests, um, but we're servant priests, and we serve in terms of providing liturgical celebrations and sacramental celebrations. The rest of what we do, and even in that case, we do that as a community. Everyone is involved. We're just kind of facilitators. Um, we believe that the whole community together consecrates um, the Eucharist. We believe actually that the Eucharist is already consecrated because it's already holy. It doesn't
Right,
need magic words spoken over it.
right.
Um, but we're the the upper room has many ministries, and most of them are led by people who are not ordained.
Denise Hackert-Stoner, I have to, three names I have to remember, who is a gifted photographer and writer and a woman priest, which I find fascinating. And she's part of the upper room inclusive Catholic community in Colony. So you're also a streetwalker. Tell us about that. It's a nice
Oh,
like you doing walking the streets, Denise.
so yes, this is just one of the many ministries of the upper room. And this one happens to be one that I'm involved with directly, and along with a couple of um, fellow priests, Dennis and Kathy. And we started out just by going to Five Below or the dollar store and buying a bunch of bottles of water, and it was summertime, so we had like granola bars and
Snack.
snacks for people. And we would just walk the streets of Troy looking for people who needed, who were living on the street and needed something to get them through. Now that it's cold weather, we've been flooded with donations of coats and hats and gloves and warm socks. And today we brought two big carafes of hot chocolate with us, and cookies, and we just try to find people who could use that.
Could use it, could use the help. So you're not a prostitute. I want to make that clear to my listeners who may have gotten the wrong idea, but you're a streetwalker in the sense of walking the streets in search of people who may need a little boost.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's something that doesn't normally happen
Yeah.
in a regular congregation. What else? Tell us about some of the other ministries.
Oh, there are so many. Let's see. And I know I'm going to forget some. Um,
We'll just highlight them then.
okay, some of the ones that I remember offhand are we help out at there's a food pantry at St. Vincent's Church in Albany. We collect food for them. Every other week, people bring donations for them, and we have representatives of the community that deliver that. We also are involved in street soldiers. You may have heard of them.
Yes, yes. Tell us about
So we one member of our community especially represents us at a table there every month. And when she's away or needs help, one of us will, or a couple of us will fill in for her. But yeah, so that's another big ministry. Also, Family Promise, you may have heard of them. They they offer great assistance to refugees and homeless families. So these are a lot of these are ministries that are already existing that we help out with.
Mhm.
Um, that we also collect for Malala, her fund. Um, just
That's for
many. Oh,
education of girls.
yep, education of girls.
Mhm.
Um, the Welcome Table in Albany. So quite a few of us help out there once a month on a Saturday to provide lunch for people who
So
need.
I want people, thank you for this because I do want listeners to know about the church and the work, but I'm still fascinated by the idea of women priests. I'm sorry, I grew up as Catholic girl, and I began hating the church when at First Communion, Paul Audi got to walk in front of me, even though my name alphabetically comes first because males were superior to women in the church liturgy. And you could never be a priest, and you had to be obedient and subservient and let the priest explain things to you like you couldn't read yourself. And this just defies all of that. It treats you like an equal person.
Yeah. Um, and yet we're not recognized by the church. So that,
Yeah.
that still exists.
Well,
But
you're deeply feminist, so of course they don't, right? And is there any hope? The previous Pope Francis was progressive as far as popes go, and Leo is an American who's very sympathetic to the social justice issues that you minister to. Is there any hope that women ever would be admitted in a traditional priesthood? Do you see that happening?
I don't see it happening in my lifetime. Um, I don't think it will happen during the papacy of Leo, but I mean, never say never, I guess. Both
Okay,
Francis,
what will come first, Denise? A woman president in the United States or a woman priest in the Roman
I
Catholic
think a
Church?
president will come first. But, I do think that both Francis and Leo are very good men, very good popes, and have done a lot to advance uh, the recognition of the importance of taking care of the poor,
Right. Right.
and also opening the church more for to an as an inclusive sort of body. I don't think it's still not very inclusive, but they certainly have tried to improve that. But I don't, it was Francis who really declared that the ban on women priests was a decisive
Right.
thing and that it was not going to change. And so far, Leo hasn't done anything or said anything to the contrary. So we'll see.
I hope this is not too arcane. I found this interesting as someone who was raised in the Catholic Church. They are very proud of the fact that all priests descend from the original apostles. The apostolic line of succession is clear, and women are part of that. Thanks to a priest back in the early 2000s who actually defied the church and was excommunicated too. And this is the story I'm talking about of the Danube Seven.
Mhm.
Can you tell listeners about that? This is a great story.
Sure. So this was in 2002 when
Right.
when seven women, I think they may all have been from Germany and Austria, but I'm not sure, um, were on a boat on the Danube. I have read that the reason why they were on the river was so that they wouldn't be in any one diocese, so that no bishop had would have to claim them, I guess. Um, and and there was a bishop, a male bishop on board who ordained them.
And
So,
all the women since then have been ordained by those women or by women who were ordained by that seven.
right. So it's been just a succession of ordinations. So our bishops, we were talking earlier about the non-hierarchical
Right.
structure of the women priest movement in general. It's not just the upper room. Um, our bishop's role is really to ordain other women priests.
Hmm.
Um, our bishops do not um, preside over any diocese. We're not under any bishop. So every community in the entire movement is independent. So we don't have a bishop over us. No bishop tells us what to do. We each have our own personality, sort of, and charism and um, independence.
Okay, so in Albany, the Catholic Church is a diocese and it has had a number of bishops. And
Mhm.
what's the relationship between that bishop, the traditional church bishop, who thinks you're excommunicated, and the upper room church.
There is none.
Friendly. There is no
There
relationship.
is no relationship. Yeah. We do have, we do have relationships with certain members of religious communities who pray with us, but we have no relationship with any of the hierarchy in the Roman Church.
They just pretend you don't exist.
Kind of, yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. So what do you think is the difference? You have seen you have seen them both. You still work with both because have I made clear that there are male priests as well as female priests in upper room.
Yep.
You work together, which is very nice. It is not exclusively run by women.
Right.
What's the difference between a man being a priest and a woman being a priest?
Well, I mean, are you talking about male priests in the Roman Church or any male priest, like a male priest in our movement?
Okay, both.
Okay, well, I can say that, I mean, just being women and having a female perspective and worldview and experience as women makes us fundamentally different from any male priest, just like any group of women and group of men just sometimes see the world maybe a little bit differently and
Mhm.
relate a little bit differently. Um, I think that being there's a big difference between women priests in our and men priests in our movement and priests in the traditional
Traditional
Roman
church, right,
Catholic
right.
Church. Yeah. And that is mainly that we are free. We're free to follow our own call. We are obedient only to our call, not to a bishop and not to a diocese, not to any higher level, because we don't have hierarchy. So we have just a myriad of gifted people, and they can use their gifts for the good of their communities in the way that they're called to do that. And I think that Roman Catholic priests are much more confined in their roles because they answer to a hierarchy.
Okay, a little controversial here, I'm warning you. So if priests in the traditional church were allowed to be married, or if women were allowed to, do you think that we would have ended up with the incredible and horrible sexual scandal, the predator scandal that the Catholic Church has endured for the last few decades?
I don't know. I would think that it would be, yeah, it's so hypothetical.
Yeah, it is definitely speculative, but
Yeah, it certainly, do you
it's
think,
unnatural. Come on, Denise, it's unnatural to live your whole life without being close to another human.
right, right. And people choose to do that for, certain reasons. Monastic people do that. But to be a parish priest and, involved in a community and out in the world, it's probably a little bit difficult.
Yes, weird. It's
Yeah.
weird.
But I don't know. I think that the real problem with that scandal, um, or at least a significant problem, was the secrecy around it
The
and the
cover-ups.
refusal of the church to recognize it
Yeah, the cover-ups.
for what it was. Yeah, not only the cover up in public, but the cover up within that organism, so they just didn't know how to confront it. And so they just hid it,
Yeah, they did for
because they
many
didn't
years.
want to look at it.
Right, right. It's
Yeah,
costing so much money now that might be going to other things. Instead, they're
yeah, yeah,
paying off abuse, people who went through terrible abuse. Yeah.
yeah.
It,
And
it,
then so many more people were just turned
from
off
the church.
by the church as a result.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me go back now. I am skipping around, but I had an amazing experience, and some other people listening to this may also want to check out the Upper Room. Can you invite them? Can you tell them how they might learn more? Go and do what I did this past weekend and see you all in action.
Oh, all are welcome. Yeah. So we have a website. The Upper Room has a website, and it is, let's see, I believe hold on.
It's easily Googleable, I can tell you, Googleable.
Yeah, it is
Or,
Googleable.
yeah,
It's upperroomicc.org.
okay. And that will
Yeah, so
tell
they
you
can find out where we are. They can you know, they can come anytime.
and listen. And if they do, they will see a liturgy that is a service that's been created by the community itself. And you have a role in this. You one of your skills, well, two of them I'll say, is photography and writing. And you've put together music that's used in the meetings. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. Well, we love putting together our liturgies, and music is a big part of it.
Right.
So there's a couple of us. Mary Teresa, I mentioned earlier, also does puts pictures with music. So if we pick out a beautiful song that we really want to offer to people as part of a liturgy, um, sometimes it already has a beautiful video that goes with it, and
Mhm.
we'll use that. But if it doesn't, we'll we'll put pictures with it. And often, sometimes I use, Scott's pictures and my pictures. Sometimes, I need pictures of people. I don't take a lot of pictures of people. So I've reached out to the community and asked them to send their family pictures if they give permission for that, and include their faces in the videos. Or if I can't do that, if it's something that I really need specific with people in it, I'll turn to Unsplash or one of the
Yeah.
other free picture
The free
sources.
picture services. But I think listeners get an idea of how open, how creative the service is. If you've been to a regular church service, you know how just stodgy and boring, just openly boring it was. I loved at the ceremony I went, there were three young boys. No, it was, sorry, one girl and two boys. They were siblings, and they were Haitian. And
Mhm.
they were very happy to be at the service because their normal Haitian service, which is straight Catholic, was boring and long. And this, they
Mhm.
didn't feel that. They colored through it. They drew crosses and stars, played with the music, sang along with the music. It's a very different feel than a traditional Catholic ceremony.
Well, I'm really glad that you enjoyed it, Rosemary, and I
I
hope you come
did.
back sometime.
Yes, I think I have to. Like I say, there are people who look for a way, just an escape from the horribleness out there. And this very much provided that. There was discussion of it. Someone during the sharing of the bowl, she passed the bowl. I guess she didn't explain this. She passed the bowl, and when you want to say something, you hold on to it. Some people use a stick, but a bowl in this case, and you say what you thought. And one person said, I just hate the negativity that's everywhere. And I come here and I feel sharing and love. And it didn't feel fake to me. And I'm kind of a skeptical person. I was surprised by that.
Yeah, well, the way for me, and I can't speak for everyone in the upper room, but I wouldn't be surprised if more people do feel this way, like I do. I feel like when we get together and come together at the upper room on Sundays, we're feeding ourselves.
Hmm.
And then we are the body of Christ. So when we go out into the community the rest of the week, we're feeding everyone else.
Yeah. So
So
it gives you
you can't
strength
just
and
keep
then
giving and giving and giving without
getting something
them,
back.
yeah,
Right.
getting together and getting that back. So
And yet it was extremely creative and individual. And okay, I also have to ask about this too because it was inclusive. That's part of the name.
mhm,
And there are men, I already said this, as well as women. And there were different genders, and there were different races and different nationalities. Diversity and inclusiveness are not very cool in our political climate anymore. It's um, one more stigma that your church is bringing down contempt from the outer world. Do you realize that? Is that
yeah.
something that you think about?
Well, we've already we're already excommunicated. What else could they do to us?
Yeah.
But really, w- we are who we are, and we're the upper room community, and we have um, our own mission and our own vision. And I feel like as long as we're honest to that and true to that mission and that vision, then we're not wrong.
Hmm.
We're on the right track.
One of the women said, "Oh yeah, we're renegades," and she said it with
Yeah.
a joyful note in her, or lilt in her voice.
Yes.
What is more powerful, the Association of American Bishops or the Association of Roman Catholic Women Priests?
Hmm. That's a good question. I mean, it depends on what kind of power, maybe. I think that certainly in numbers and in um, the power that's wielded over other people, I think the American bishops are more powerful. But I think that if we're talking about wisdom, the strength in wisdom, and the strength in following your vision, and the strength in an inclusive and open community, I think we're stronger.
Whoa, that was almost a sermon. That was really good. No, that was really good. There is some discussion in the Catholic Church itself, the traditional church, not just your inclusive community, about changing the name to just plain old Catholicism instead of Roman Catholicism. Where to stand on that?
It's a that is an ongoing discussion. Are you asking for my opinion?
Yeah, your opinion.
Um, I've gone back and forth on it, to be honest. I am not a decisive person, Rosemary. At this particular time, I feel like we could do without the Roman. Um, the reason why many people do believe that we should keep the Roman name is that they have a strong belief, and I truly admire this. I may not agree with it, but I respect it. They believe that as a prophetic movement, which we are,
Hmm.
um, we're speaking truth to power, that we have a stronger position if we're speaking from within the organization that we're prophesying to.
Hmm.
That once we leave, if we just say, okay, we're no longer Roman Catholic, they believe that then we're just another Protestant denomination,
Yeah,
and we're no longer prophets to the Roman Catholic Church.
right, right,
So that's the reason why that's kind of the back and forth.
right.
And
And,
then,
and to be clear, the reason to get rid of the name is that the Romans represent the patriarchy and the oppressors at the time of the church.
yeah, and still, and at that
Still.
time, and right up until now. So there's
Hmm.
just so much baggage with it.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, patriarchy and non-inclusiveness and judgment and I was at a funeral not too long ago. It was in a Roman Catholic church. And the priest, and I've nothing against this priest. I don't really know him, but I'm sure he's a good priest. And he gave a beautiful sermon, spoke to the family very kindly. But when it came time for communion, he stood up and he said, we are Roman Catholics and we believe that the communion is the body and blood of Jesus. If you are not Catholic, you may come forward and just put your hands over your chest, meaning that you won't get communion, and we'll bless you. And I was appalled by that. Just the walls went right up.
Yep, I get that.
So that's where I am at the moment. Not very willing to be without the Roman name.
Yeah,
But I totally understand people who feel the opposite. It's a good reason why they believe that.
Denise Hackert-Stoner, nature photographer and woman priest. We're about out of time. I traditionally end the podcast with a toast. This week's is easy. I am fascinated by this whole world that you opened up and that I hope some of my listeners will also explore. And a toast to women who are religious in the best meaning of that word, caring about the community and about peace and inclusiveness and all the things that politically are out right now, as important and are keeping that alive. I really salute you and thank you.
Well, thank you, Rosemary. And if I knew we were going to have a toast, I would have brought some wine.
Yeah, and the alcoholic kind is okay here too.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. Thanks for having me.